Hello and welcome to Steve's Vintage Model Builds Redux. Hey, we had a little disaster in the last video. I got 25 minutes into the kit review and the computer shut down. I had forgotten that's what I told it to do when it finishes its full system scan on Tuesdays. And so anyways, I broke it into two. So part one is the, excuse me, build updates and new kits, which include this. And then this is going to be standalone. So it'll make it for a shorter video. Okay, so I was up to the local hobby shop today, NRC Hobbies, and our good friend Matt. I had gone in for some paint. I'm gonna, as I mentioned before, I'm gonna build the IDF Israeli Merkava tank next, and I needed some Sinai gray paint. So I went in and I told him at the start, I'm not going to spend much money today. I'm here about paint, to talk about paint. And so anyways, we talked about paint, and I talked to him about the problem I've been having with the Tamiya TS paints. And I've been having a terrible time where they put one coat on, and then you put the second coat and it blisters. And so anyways, I learned. I had lots of great responses and input from the model community, the people I put out there and asked, and I really appreciate that. I got some great tips. I learned a lot of things, but I learned from Matt what my problem was me. That's usually, yeah, you're such a problem child. The problem was that I was waiting too long between putting the next coat on, and what was happening was the first coat I would let it cure up all nice, and then I would put a second coat on, but I was usually leaving it overnight or whatever, and so then when you add the second coat of paint, it reactivates the first coat of paint and causes blistering. So now that I've learned that, I'm very happy, and hopefully I won't have as much grief with the paint. Okay, so yeah, so I went in, and there's always stuff going on at the hobby shop there, and so I went and found my paint, and then I went to the section of shelves that I usually go to. And you never know what's going to pop out, and this did, I'll tell you. Okay. Now, because of the technical difficulty from before, this has been opened, and I had started the review, so I apologize. Everything's not perfect and pristine. This was in shrink wrap from the hobby shop with $29.99 from NRC Hobbies. So if you're on Vancouver Island, especially if you're in the Central or North Island, check out NRC Hobbies, and he does all sorts of model kit stuff, as well as, of course, radio-controlled aircraft, boats, cars. They do repairs of that stuff. He has a great selection of models and can order most things if you want at no additional cost. So yeah, I saw this, and I've been looking at I've been looking for a PBY. I mean, who doesn't want a Catalina in their stash on their and or on their shelf? I mean, yeah, who doesn't? People who aren't interested in our hobby at all. That's about it. So I've been looking around. Tamiya does one, and Academy does one. And to me, I looked at them both when I was initially shopping around. I looked at them both on scale mates, and oh, that reminds me about scale mates. For those who might be interested, I'm going to start posting builds in progress on my on albums on scale mates. So if you want to check out the scale mates, my scale mates, you'll see kits in the stash. You'll see kits that I built. You'll see albums of works in progress, all that kind of stuff. So again, there's no monetization there or anything, and you don't get anything for views, and you're welcome to make comments there as well. So for what it's worth, there you go. Yeah, because other than taking individual photographs and putting them together in a slideshow, which I then publish to YouTube, I have no idea how to, insert still photos or do anything like that. So, anyways, okay, so we've got this today, and this is 172 scale PBY-5A Black Cat. That's the designated by the U.S. Navy as Catalina. Later designated by NATO as MOP. M-O-P. MOP. They come up with these names, I don't know. Actually, there was one guy in World War II who was actually in charge of that stuff. Coming up for names. And he came up with the names for the Japanese aircraft, the Zeke and the Kate and all that kind of stuff. And he was pretty cheeky and smart about assigning those names. But and then of course NATO took over and we got MOB. Okay. Enough said. Yeah. Okay, so the PBY Catalina, one of the most famous aircrafts ever. A magnificent flying boat, as they were called. This particular version is actually amphibious. It's not. Of course, it is a flying boat, but it has wheels, landing gear, so it could take off either from land or from the water. Although, particularly for landing, water was preferred, as well as for takeoff. It could be done, but usually for takeoff, the landing gear, it was only used for, getting it into the water, from the hangar into the water. And, because, I don't know really how it worked entirely, but I don't think it was a good idea for these to sit in the water all the time. But who knows? If you do, tell me. Be glad to hear about that. Okay, so the PBY Catalina was manufactured by the Consolidated Aircraft Corporation, later known as Convair. And Consolidated Aircraft had they manufactured many famous aircraft, the most famous of which would be probably the B-24 Liberator. And in 1943, they merged with Vultee Aircraft to form Consolidated Vultee, which then became Convair. And as far as the Consolidated Aircraft Corporation is concerned, it goes back to 1923. It was founded in 1923 when Reuben Fleet, F-L-E-E-T. Well, okay. It really started with the Gallaudet Aircraft Company, and Edson Gallaudet was from a very prominent, famous family. His father founded Gallaudet University, and I believe the family was also involved with the founding of Johns Hopkins University. So, way up there in not just American society, but truly elites. Um, I hate that word, but in any case, yeah, they were. And Gallaudet was brilliant. He was a brilliant engineer. He first attended Yale University, where he got a BA. Then he got a PhD from Johns Hopkins, which I think might have been in engineering, but I don't know for sure. And and he was a pioneer, particularly in airfoil and flying boat technology. And so, but in his early 50s, for whatever reason, he decided he was just going to retire. So he sold Gallaudet Aircraft to Reuben Fleet, who had also purchased the Dayton Wright Company from General Motors. They had decided to divest themselves from the Dayton Wright Company. I don't know why, but they did. And so Mr. Fleet bought it, and he set up a factory in Buffalo, New York, on the what were then beautiful shores of Lake Erie. Well, not exactly. On the Niagara River, I guess. I don't know. Rochester's on the lake. I don't think Buffalo is. But anyways, they get all the lake effects now. Love you, Buffalo. Used to go to the games all the time. Yay, Sabres. Boo, Leafs. I'm just kidding. Okay, so, yeah, and so there we go. So, yeah, so Consolidated Aircraft was off the ground, as it were. And they did a lot of different types of development through, the 20s, the late 20s, and the 1930s. They grew exponentially with, of course, U.S. military contracts, and eventually became the Convair company. Convair, aside from a couple of passenger liners, probably their most famous aircraft was the B-36 Peacemaker, which was a real beast. It was the largest aircraft ever produced, with the exception of Howard Hughes's Spruce Goose, or what he called at the time the Hercules, which never saw active service in anything. It barely got off the water, I think, twice, but eventually it was abandoned as just not practical. It was just too big. But like anything else in that business, you try, you maybe not necessarily fail, but you learn a lot. And that's why engineers are so big on prototypes. You don't really know until you build the prototype and test it. So there you go. And I'm not sure what happened to Consolidated Aircraft. They probably got absorbed by Douglas or Martin or McDonnell Douglas or Lockheed Martin. I don't know. Anyways, so yeah, so that's it as far as Consolidated Aircraft is concerned, and they built great aircraft, and of course they continued on with Vultee. Now we're going to move on to the subject at hand, the black cat. And the black cats were a scourge in the Pacific. Oh man, these guys were mean. They were bad. They were bad. They were night raiders, and they were called black cats because they only went out in the dark of night, and they had to do their thing and skedaddle back and get out of the air before the first crack of dawn. Because as great an aircraft as this was, it was big and it was fat, and it was slow, not a real fast aircraft. It wasn't designed for that. It was designed for long-range patrol and bombing, spotting, and so on and so forth. But by painting them black, yeah. So I'm going to read something off of a website called Cockpit USA, and they've been around since about 1975, and they write about a lot of stuff on all sorts of different military aircraft. So anyways, check them out. That's cockpitusa.com, all one word. And they introduce it by: imagine flying closely over the dangerous waters of the South Pacific during World War II, hiding in the darkness on the night from enemy ships. These nighttime operations, referred to as Black Cat or, more appropriately, nightmare missions, would soon become their specialty and earned them the nickname Black Cats. The nocturnal missions gave the PBY airmen their fame in the early 1940s. Painted matte black, effective and creative in its late-night stealth missions, the PBY Black Cat Squadron World War II aircraft became the first of its kind. The Black Cat's name was adopted on October 30th, 1942 by the PBY World War II aircraft stealth missions, for stealth missions, and I think their first was, I'm going to have to check. I think it was VP-12 or maybe VP-21. I'm not sure. My dyslexia might be hitting me hard there. So anyways, the missions were extremely dangerous. The aircraft were carried multiple machine guns as well as bombs and or torpedoes. And as you can imagine, if you've ever been in the Pacific, a lot of them are volcanic islands with hills and mountains and so on and so forth. So very, very difficult conditions to navigate under, especially at night, flying low. But they were devastating, and I'm not going to say they were the most commended unit of World War II, but you know, they received commendation after commendation after commendation. So everything from Rabaul to Saipan to Iwo Jima, all those island stepping, they harassed and harried and destroyed Japanese supply lines, and it drove them nuts. Okay, so here we go. And again, I apologize that I've already opened this. So we've got Academy kit number 12487. We have, Academy does this beautifully. Beautiful photographs of the completed model. This doesn't really look black, but anyways. And then there's this one. So yeah, they build up quite nicely. This is 1993 tooling. The box here says copyright 2022. And I think it was new decals in 2014. As always with Academy, we get their notice, their warning, check with parts list before unsealing. And you know, you just want to give it a general go over, make sure it's okay. Oh, Oh, and I'm just going to mention too. Last night I watched I've seen it before more than once, but a great movie from 1969 called The Bridget Remagen, and it starred. There were some great German actors there, and it starred George Segal, Ben Gazzara, Robert Vaughn, E.G. Marshall, Bradford Tillman. So yeah, a great cast and a good story. Lots of explosions and good military action scenes. Um, no stupid dialogue, or I should say superfluous dialogue. No superfluous dialogue. And yeah, so it was a good movie. So check it out, The Bridget Remagen. A good movie. A lot of fun to watch. And it wasn't the Sherman show. They used Chaffee tanks. Yeah, I mean everybody loves Shermans, but you know there were other tanks in World War II as well, especially later. But you know by 44, 45, you know always the Shermans. I might get in trouble for this, but um, the Sherman's biggest advantages were numbers, always. They were never that great with armor. They weren't that great design. Yeah, I'm not saying they were okay, obviously, but by the end of the war, or very late in the war, enemy armor was they couldn't do much. So, and that's why the others came along. But a great tank, and war couldn't have been won without them. So, but it was nice to see it wasn't the Sherman show. Okay, and so here, what we're going to do is, and again, I apologize, it does save time though. I have already opened this this beautifully heat-sealed package. And we want to very carefully, and this is designed actually to be the same size as the box, and it's put on top. So it stabilizes the box, which is also a very, can you see that? A very sturdy cardboard box. Top opening. So we'll start with the clear parts, and I'm not going to take these out of the bag. I didn't before. I'm not going to now. But can you see the detail there? First of all, they're flawlessly molded, and there's very nice detail on the panel lines and so forth. And I'm going to give a little tip here about panel lines. You can mask the you-know-what about out of stuff, and meticulously painted, which is fine. I'm not criticizing that at all. Or you can use this, a silver Sharpie. Okay, obviously you can get them in black too. You can get them in gold, and copper. And they are just perfect for doing these little lines. These are regular tip, but you can get extra fine tip. Actually, you can get fine and extra fine. And so, yeah, hard to go wrong with that. So we've got two different versions here for the nose, and we'll get into that later. But beautifully molded and beautifully detailed. Let me can I get the light right there? Can you see that? See that there? Lovely lines, just perfect. And 172, and I said it was a big fat aircraft, and it is. So this is a good size. Not as long as the as the Lancasters you see, but it, wasn't as long as Lancasters. So we've got beautiful molding here, and we have lovely panel lines, rivet marks, rivet lines, which they look quite pronounced, but it's not like they're sticking up, or they're nicely done. So you probably just want a light coat of primer on this. And sprue bag number 2, we've got bulkheads and bombs. Just out of the way so you can see better. We've got bulkheads and bombs. There's some detail on the bulkheads here, and these are the ammunition belts for these have to be 50 cal. Those aren't 30 cal belts. But anyways, I think the 30s were in the front, and the standard armament was in the. But for the Black Cats, because they were designed as Night Raiders, I think they had 50s. And so we got pre-molded engines. This is nice, where they put the connections here. Don't you just hate it when they put them in the middle of the thing, or even on the end? Everything is nicely molded. There are no broken parts. There's no flash. Looks great. And lastly, we get the wings, big wings. Again, nicely molded. There's a couple little blemishes, smudges, whatever you want to call it. Let's see one. Where is it? Let's see this one here. There's a little smudge there. But again, that's going to anything like that's going to be covered up by your primer or your paint if you go direct. Okay, and we got a decal set here, very basic. We got the cockpit control panel. We get the stars and the registration designations. These were Night Raiders. They didn't have a lot of decals. They didn't paint up the noses, nothing like that. And so the Academy decals are okay. They feel pretty much the same as what do you call it? The Tamiya decals. But one thing I would say is you don't want to over soak them. They will tear very easily. Ones like this are pretty straightforward, but if you have any like curvy lines or whatever, I had a terrible time with the on the Mirage kit. But it turned out good in the end, so that's all right. And we get the usual warnings, all the legal stuff. And a little sheet with tips for beginners, novices, whatever. Okay, and one thing about Academy is they don't give you any write-up. I don't know why, but there's other mainland Asian companies. They don't do it. Speaking of which, check out Peter Oxley's rant on the Kinetic Sea Harrier. He just dropped that video today with a live chat, and that kit was a disaster. So generally, for various reasons, that being one of them, is I avoid Chinese kids. So, anyways, here we go. Very basic stuff here. Okay, we're not, you know, this ain't no Qatari or Wingnut Wings kit. But my experience with them is with the Academy kits, and there's kind of like two academies, I should say, too. There's the old Academy, which aren't bad, nothing wrong with that. But this is what you get. You get very basic instructions, very simple, very straightforward, and so yeah. And then there's the new Academy, and I'm going to put up a video that shows their new injection molding plant in Korea, and everything's brand new. And the new kits that they're putting out, they're right up there with the best, I'm telling you. Yeah, so. You know, this kit was $30 plus tax. And so I'm not going to, you know, $30. Actually, you know what? When I was first hunting around for this, I saw both the Tamiya and this kit. They wanted like $65 plus tax, and that's the reason I didn't get it, because I thought that was a little steep for both kits. The Tamiya one maybe a little up a notch or whatever, but still not that great. The big difference between this kit and the Tamiya kit was it had a figure. So anyways, I was waiting for it to go on sale. It was on my wish list, which is private, not soliciting anybody buying me stuff from my wish list. And then when I went into the hobby shop today and I saw this for like $29.99, I'm like, oh, geez. And Matt was so happy. I said, that's a great deal. He said, yeah. Oh, and the other thing was, today I went in, he always has a bargain bin of kits he's picked up wherever. And, excuse me, I'm going to have a sip of a beverage here. But today he had a big carton full of kits for free. And they were old kits mostly. Some would be like, some had been completed, but would be like a refurbish or rebuild or renovate, whatever you want to call it. Some were partially completed, and yeah. So, anyways, yeah. So I picked up a sweet kit of a Nomad station wagon that all the parts were there. Somebody had started it, and for whatever reason, I guess they just never finished it. So yeah, so that's a nice little kit, and that kind of stuff is great because, I mean, heck, you know, if you do kit bashing, that is, you know, mix and match, and, you know, building stuff out of leftover parts, that kind of stuff is great. It's gold. Also, you know, if you have a kit where you know you've got a part missing, or you wrecked a part, or whatever the case may be, you know, you pick it up for spare parts. And you know, a lot of those old kits, like from AMT or whatever, a lot of that stuff is interchangeable. It's going to fit as long as it's the same scale. So there you go. Okay, so again, with Academy, no write-up, very basic stuff here as far as not much of a legend. No recommendation of particular paints. They indicate black, silver, gunmetal, metallic, gray, yellow, green, and flat. Flat what? I'm not sure, but maybe we'll find that out. excuse me. And they start off with the interior assembly. This is kind of this is kind of weird. They've got this for 2 and this for 2. Oh no, it means do it 2 times. Okay, so we've got main landing gear, interior assembly. Unfortunately, the blisters are closed. You can see the guns when they're inside, so that's just fine. But if you want the guns deployed like they're in action, you're going to have to do some serious stuff, which would require an extremely high level of skill when you're dealing with clear parts. And it would involve very fine dremeling. So, yeah, so we've got chromate green. Nothing here says chromate green. It just says green. And I'll have to see what chromate green is. I have an idea. We might just end up using cockpit green mixed with something, but we'll see. Okay, so yeah, very straightforward, very basic, nothing too complicated here at all. Got the instrument panel, apply the decal. You know, they indicate paint by color. Part numbers here and here. We've got the cockpit. Obviously, I guess we've got we've got a pilot and a navigator. That's probably how it works. And then 2 gunners in the back, or towards the stern, I guess, since it's a flying boat. You might be able to find some 172 figures that would go there. For this size of a kit, they're usually too small, and you don't really see them much once they're in there anyways. And since I'm going to do this wheels down, parked, it doesn't need to have pilots inside anyways. And then, so we've got control handles and actuators. We've got 2 versions of bow turret, like I showed you before. Early version, late version. I'm going to do the late version. 2 is always better than 1, except when it comes to a wife. Except my wife has a twin sister. No, no. No cheeky comments about that. Okay, and so here we move to putting the fuselage pieces together. Here are the bulkheads. And these blisters are big enough, you're probably going to be able to see inside what, you know, so do these bulkheads. Do them up nice. Then you've got engine assembly. Lots of holes. Lots of holes to be opened. Fair enough. Good pin vise practice. Assembling the bombs. No torpedoes in this. Assembling the wings. And then putting the engines on. D. And then you've got the final assembly. You know, here's your radio antenna and the wheels. The wheels didn't look, you know, hardly any detail. They were just wheels. And then we've got the decaling. As I showed, there's not many decals. And to wrap it up here is the parts locating diagram. And from the look of it here, you're going to use all of the parts. It doesn't look like there's anything shaded out. And so, there you go. Okay, so now we're going to rate the kit, and I use a 12-point scale. 10 standard points, up to 2 points for packaging, up to 2 points for sprues, up to 3 points for parts, and up to 3 points for instructions, or points for instructions. Each of those categories can get a quarter point bonus for any wow factors, and I also allow for one full bonus point for value, which is not only the basic cost of the kit, but kind of how much time, how many hours of enjoyment am I going to get out of it. So packaging was absolutely perfect, 2 points, and I'm going to give a quarter bonus point because it's always nice when you have original human created artwork. Human created artwork, just like the human body artwork as it was created. Anyways, as far as the sprues are concerned, that's going to be 2 1/4 as well. In spite of all those little parts, little arms and things, everything was molded perfectly, and those clear parts were absolutely stunning. Just they're perfect, great. Actually, that's going to be 3. That's going to be 2 points for the sprues. And there was no flash, molding bubbles were fine, everything, etc., etc., etc. As far as the points, as far as the parts go, quality of plastic is good. There was nice detail. We'll see after it gets painted up, but there was very nice detail, I thought. There were no warped or broken parts. Decals were adequate, and but yeah, a quarter point bonus there for the clear parts. That's where the quarter point bonus goes there. In instructions, 2.75. Got to take a quarter point off for no general service or history notes. But everything was clear. They were laid out nicely. It's not a complicated kit, so they would be easy to follow. And this would be a great kit for maybe not a beginner, but somebody who's built a couple aircraft, and or a novice. It looks like it's going to go together beautifully. I've never really had problems with fit in an Academy kit. There were a couple little fuselage things with the Mirage, but everybody's like that, even Tamiya sometimes. So yeah, 3 points. 3 points for 2.75 for the instructions. And I'm tempted to give it a 1 for value because, for $30, but at the same time, it's a pretty simplistic kit. And although, I'll get plenty of hours of enjoyment out of it, it is what it is. So I'm going to give it 3/4 so. Sorry to pause there while I did my calculation. Among many of my other failings, math was never my biggest thing. Anyways, so that brings us to a total of 11.75. I'm pretty impressed with this kit. Like I said, it's not a complex kit. It's not super detailed, but the detail is there. And for $30, you're going to get a lot of hours of entertainment, and this is going to build up real nice, I think. So yeah, so very high rating, 11.75 out of 12, one of my highest ever. If you think I'm too generous, let me know. And of course, that can always change as well after I build the kit. It can look. Everybody knows, and as Peter Oxley was saying today, kit can look just beautiful when you're just looking at the plastic. But when you go to build it, turns into an absolute mess. So there you have it. All right, so thanks for joining me. I got to go make the supper now. We're having pork chops, fresh corn, and beans tonight, green beans. We're overrun with green beans, but that's okay. We both love them. And so thanks for joining me. Thanks to all my subscribers. I really appreciate it. Again, Helen at Modern Pepper, Debbie at Pre-Retirement Days. Check out their cooking channels if you're interested in cooking at all. Debbie does great down-home cooking. You're especially going to like if you're American. And Helen, she's oh yeah, she's not only is she beautiful, but she's very knowledgeable. And if you're interested in Korean home cooking, that's the place to go. That's Modern Pepper. All right, so thanks again. I appreciate everyone's time. I appreciate everyone's feedback and positive encouragement. And thanks so much for everyone who joins me. We'll be back soon with another video. Cooking or kitten, we'll see. Bye now.